So, this is where children learn to add a 3-digit multiple of 100 to another 3-digit multiple of 100. Of course, they've long since got the idea of addition and of adding different everyday objects such as pineapples, bananas, pizzas. And we've moved that into more abstract units such as dots and eventually amounts or quantities. And so at Win 118, this was a big moment where children learned to add tens together. That means seeing the 10 as a unit, as a thing, with its own identity. And we're leaning on that idea here as we add hundreds. And hundreds have their own backstory. We've obviously counted to 100 here. And we've also counted hundreds, and that was really the place where we underlined that 100 has its own identity as a unit in its own right. And as we counted hundreds, we also were able to sow the seeds for this addition by talking about adding one more hundred or perhaps two more hundreds. And counting hundreds allowed us to stop and record those hundreds and to read that recording. And when reading those multiples of 100, that allowed us to give a strong structure to that process, but also to reinforce the place value concept of, look, this digit here is telling us how many hundreds we've got as we count them, and these two zeros allowed us to quickly see that we're talking about hundreds here. Now, as we come to add hundreds, we could get children to count them all over again. We certainly want to give them the strong imagery that supports the concept here, but we need to be careful that that imagery doesn't encourage the children to count out the amount of hundreds, for we have already counted out 3 add 2 and we know it's 5. So what we're trying to do is the opposite. We're trying to say to the children, we don't need to count these hundreds because we've got the factual recall. And so by the time we get into the instructional goals, the images have gone and we're expecting children just to use their recall to find the total amount of hundreds. In fact, we'll be using these 6 facts only. And that allows us to move through the goals fairly quickly. Goal 2 here, we're going to do the same as goal 1, but now we're going to get the children to stop and record it as a number in its own right as well. And at goal 3, we're just where we want to be at the end of this piece of knowledge. We want children to be able to see this addition and respond and be able to read and understand the reading of that total. Every piece of number knowledge needs to be one for its own sake, but it also has a purpose in the future. And the purpose of this piece of number knowledge is that soon we're going to be having children add any 3-digit multiple of 100 to another 3-digit multiple of 100. Well, if we look a little bit further ahead in the journey, we can see that that's going to be used as a procedural part when we come to double and add 3-digit numbers together. In many ways, the whole point of Winning with Numbers is to support a school, support a teacher, getting the basic number knowledge across from expert to novice. And so if you're doing a daily face-to-face session as part of that at the moment, then keep explaining and giving children the understanding that sits behind the instruction. Check that understanding. Once you've got the accuracy and the understanding, then really the next thing is to demand a little bit more speed of response from learners. And once that's there, beginning to extend to ask, well, what else do we know? What else can we read? What else can we write down? And don't forget to look both ways, backwards and forwards. The looking backwards involves retrieval, going back over some recent wins of number knowledge, particularly here, the 2-digit takeaway 1-digit process that we've just secured. And the looking forward is very much about modelling what's to come. And here the next win is where learners secure the first 10 multiples of 3. We've already been modelling that at the last couple of wins anyway. We'll continue to model that. And we've also secured the first 5 multiples of 3 back here. So we're really only looking at the next 5 multiples of 3. And so again, reaching forward into the resources, pausing the video, showing some of the images that go there and getting children to join in with you as you count out those multiples with explanations. And so there we have it, a lovely place to be on the Winning with Numbers sequence of learning. Adding multiples of 100 together for the very first time.